management in 2017, 69% of federal workforce was over the age of 40. Only 54%, 15% fewer of the total civilian labor force fit that category. And when it comes to recent graduates, the federal workforce is woefully behind. At the end of 2018, only 6% of the federal workforce was under the age of 30. In the private sector, 24%. This means agencies across the federal government are at risk of losing institutional knowledge as older employees retire and agencies find themselves unable to recruit new employees for the future generation of civil servants. It means the federal government will lack experienced leadership because agencies are currently failing to find and train people in their 20s and 30s who can and will fill leadership and management roles in the next 15 to 20 years. It means taxpayers will end up paying the price due to a widening skills gap in critical occupations across the federal government, hindering agencies' ability to fulfill their missions on behalf of the American people. Today's hearing will focus on what the federal government can do to attract the next generation of federal employees to public service and discuss how the federal government, as an employer, can and should compete with the private sector for that talent. In this Congress, the Committee of Oversight and Reform, and this subcommittee in particular, has conducted extensive oversight in programs that have gone awry and have either endangered the safety and security of our nation or have wasted taxpayer dollars. We've examined missteps related to the decennial census, the veterans' health care problems, the waste created by the Department of Defense's financial management, and agency failures in IT management and acquisitions. You'll notice the I word appears in none of that work. Each of these areas is on the Government Accountability's Office high-risk list, and GAO cites critical workforce skills as gap factors that have led to the placement on that list. It's unsurprising that strategic human capital management has been on the GAO high-risk list since 2001. Post and pray, posting a job vacancy and praying it will get filled is not a viable human capital strategy for long-term success. Given the age distribution of the current federal workforce and the continuing changing nature of work, the federal government as a whole must do a better job of attracting and retaining top young talent in the civil service. Note, I didn't say keep them forever or make a permanent career of it. A lot of young people may not want and probably don't want a 30 or 40-year career in one job or in one service. The federal government is going to have to adapt to that, that's the new normal, and people are going to move in and out of federal service during their careers. The federal government should look to private sector practices when it comes to establishing a pipeline to public service, especially those companies that compete for the same talent that agencies are looking for to fill current skill gaps. For example, agencies could better use current internship programs to identify and recruit qualified individuals for jobs in the civil service, as does the private sector. In 2011, I introduced the Federal Internship Improvement Act to generate awareness of federal internships available to students, to provide data on the efficacy of the federal government's use of internships, and to provide a mechanism for agencies to systematize those programs, upgrade them, and use them to find qualified full-time employees as a recruiting tool. This is done routinely in the private sector. I know companies that if you're hired to be, if you're chosen as an intern, there's an 85% chance of a job offer and almost an 85% chance you'll say yes. That is not the case in the federal government, not even close. The same year, the Obama administration established the Pathways program to boost recruitment of diverse entry-level hires into the federal government through internships, recent graduate hiring, and the Presidential Management Program for students with graduate degrees. However, participation in the Pathways program and agency use of that program as a pipeline to fill skills gap remains disappointingly low. For fiscal 2014, the last year in which OPM published data, only 15% of competitive federal government hires were Pathways appointments who had the option to convert to permanent federal positions. The federal government must also do more to compete with private sector in terms of benefits. And I know our colleague, Ms. Maloney, will talk about this in detail in a few minutes. Those benefits and leave policies are essential if we're going to fill gaps in highly skilled positions in critical sectors such as information technology, cybersecurity, financial management, and the like. In a Harris poll published earlier this year, the U.S. government's reputation ranked last in comparison to 100 top companies. Last. Simply put, individuals graduating from top schools are not attracted to federal service for a lot of reasons. This is partly due to the fact that the federal government has struggled to offer workplace flexibility and work-life balance in federal service that are available in the private sector. In 2019, the federal government still does not offer paid family leave to its employees, including maternity and paternity leave. As of March of this year, 18% of private industry workers reported some access to paid family leave through the employer, and in some cases it's highly generous. The availability of paid family leave is even more prevalent among professional and technical occupations and industries, full-time workers and workers in large companies. Many of them the federal government competes with for talent, such as, for example, the consulting firm, auditing firm Deloitte and Amazon. They each offer a minimum of 16 weeks of paid leave to male and female employees for childbirth, adoption, or other family medical care, versus the federal government, 0. Agencies are facing situations where employees leave their agency to start a family only to show up again as an employee for a contractor or a consultant hired by the agency to do similar work because they've got the benefit coverage the federal government doesn't. I'm also concerned that the federal government continues to fall behind the private sector in terms of telework opportunities. Telework allows an employee to work from a remote or alternative location, thereby reducing commute time and allowing employees to work during weather events. And we know continuity of operations is very important after a series of events here in the nation's capital underscored that, starting with 9/11. The availability of telework, we find, is fundamental to the recruitment and retention of the next generation. OPM has found that compared to other generations, millennials are almost certainly likely to prioritize telework when making employment decisions. Is it part of the offering? Yet instead of expanding its use, unfortunately, some administration agencies are rolling it back. In the past 2 years, for example, the Departments of Agriculture, Education, and Interior have changed their policies to limit the number of days employees are permitted to work as telework. USDA employees, for example, used to be able to work telework up to 4 days a week. Since January of 2018, employees at that agency have been limited to 1 day a week. The federal government can do more to attract and develop the next generation of federal employees. I look forward to discussing the issues we've highlighted here, as well as other opportunities such as training, work-life balance, and other incentive agencies can offer a young and ambitious workforce looking forward to serving our country in some capacity. And with that, I'm pleased to call on my partner in this enterprise, the distinguished ranking member and former chairman of this subcommittee, Mr. Meadows.
Thank you, Mr.